Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Voices of Western. This is the Humans of Western podcast, and I'm your host, Hossein. Today, I'm joined by one of our Western University alumnus called Nathan Kennedy. Nathan has been one of those successful content creators who was able to transition from a degree in BMOS, well, I have to say chemistry to BMOS, and then to content creation. He has his podcast and TikTok and Instagram account at New Money Nate, which have altogether if I'm correct, over 500,000 followers on social media. So
Yeah,
I'm so excited for our conversation today to just discuss about personal finance and how he got to where he is today. Nathan,
yeah,
I'll
man.
be passing
Looking
it on
forward
to
to
you.
it. Yeah, I'm absolutely looking forward to it, and I think anytime I can interact with Western or give back to Western anyway, I had so much fun during my years there. So happy to get into it, man.
Awesome. Okay, well, why don't you start with a maybe short, brief introduction about yourself? Where did you grow up and all of those journey information?
Yeah, so name's Nate, Nate Kennedy. I was born in Toronto. Grew up humble beginnings. We moved out to Alberta and then back to Ontario, and then I grew up here between Mississauga and around Hamilton area. And so, yeah, I love playing sports, loved all that kind of stuff, but money was never really something that I thought I would, just have the ultimate passion for, but it definitely has been the ultimate passion of my life, in terms of just financial awareness and everything like that. And, growing up, I always had, I knew the value of a dollar, but it never was the actual practicality and like how you go about things wasn't maybe talked as much. But I definitely knew money was important, and it was not a taboo topic in my home. And so I'm very grateful for that. And so when I went off to Western, went and studied science and actually switched to BMOS because I realized I wasn't cut out to be a doctor. Most people that go into science, a lot of them I reckon think they can just go med school, all that stuff. And I I figured out pretty quick that wasn't the path for me. So I switched to business. And through those years, as I was switching, I realized I also started to have an affinity towards money and like wanting to learn, but I knew that I didn't know. And so I wanted to study it a ton. And so I had this inflection point where, I had my money was all over the place. My credit cards, all this kind of jazz was I had a maxed out credit card, and I thought I was good with money. I really wasn't. And so that was a sort of like aha moment for me. And I started studying it like crazy and just started realizing and started implementing some stuff very quickly and started realizing that like with a few small changes, you can really impact your life in a positive way. And so the empowerment that I got from that felt just so amazing. And so started to just like study it, and just like it became a passion of mine. And I shared that with the people around me, and they definitely loved it. But I felt like there was something more I could be doing, and I thought as though there's a lot of content out about finances and stuff, but a lot of it can be quite kind of boring. So I thought I might be able to add a flavor to it. So I started making content years ago, around like 2019, 2020. So it's crazy to say that that's years ago, eh? But started that up and started with the podcast, and then Instagram, and then TikTok, and then now YouTube a lot more. And so just been steady climbing and just sharing the energy that I get from learning about all things money. So that's my whole story.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, I mean, there definitely has been a shift on making personal finance more fun, more, friendly to consume. I remember, I mean, I personally follow you on Instagram too, so I've consumed some of your content myself. And I think it was ever since COVID happened where there was this push for more like TikTok videos on financial literacy or even Instagram. You mentioned about making some small changes in your personal life that led to becoming more financially aware. What were some of those changes, if you remember?
I think the biggest one was that you shouldn't be paying interest on your credit card. I knew that right away. The fact that you ever pay any interest, there's a problem. You should always pay your balance in full on time every month. And so I just once I got the balance down, then implementing that was a huge change. I mean, keeping your keeping your balance below 30% of your usage with your credit card is a huge one, because a lot of folks don't realize that utilization is the second most important thing to building a credit score. Saving, just saving in general, and growing your savings through high yield savings accounts was another one that I stumbled across, and realized you can get a lot more of a return on your money just sitting there from a high yield savings account. And little things like that, nothing like groundbreaking or some crazy money making thing, but little small things that I learned along the way that really like just add up and snowball. And so for any university student, I mean, I've gone and spoke at Western and talked, a lot of people that I've interacted with online are students, and there's so many little tiny things that you can make changes to that can really, really impact your finances in a positive way.
Yeah, especially the credit card one. I mean, it's one of those highest rate of returns if you pay it down. Like people think of, okay, I should invest to get a high percentage yield, but I don't think anything beats credit card. Credit cards
No.
charge you like 20% plus.
Yeah,
So
it's
the moment you pay that down, like it's 20% guaranteed that you're not going to pay moving
yeah,
forward.
yeah, it's that you can't guarantee an investment return as much as you can guarantee that interest payments coming. So that's why with credit card debt, especially, you need to pay that all off before you even look at the market or investing or anything, because it's a lot. You just can't sustain that return. So you have to get rid of that debt and then get into the other stuff.
Awesome. And so I guess it was during COVID when the idea of podcasts came to your mind, right? And you started creating content. How did that start?
So I had I joined a sports podcast. I definitely wasn't running it. There was my buddies were running a podcast, and I joined as like the fourth member around sports, and I really enjoyed it. But it was just kind of casual and never really went anywhere in terms of like, massive, and we don't do it anymore. But I felt like I wanted to grow something. I've always wanted my own thing to grow. And I felt like when I was doing the podcast, like I had some familiarity to it, but I always wanted it to be bigger. But it wasn't like, it was just like a casual thing. So I figured, oh, okay, well, maybe down the line, I'll do my own thing or run my own thing. And that ended up being money. And I put two and two together, like, oh, maybe I could do a podcast around money. Like I love money, could run it myself. I've done the podcasting thing a couple episodes before, so why not give that a try? And so that was the logic behind it. And then also it was lower lift than say a YouTube video or whatever. So I just figured, hey, like let me just try podcasting and give it a go.
And you were balancing that with school, correct? How was that
Yeah.
like? Because I imagine
Yeah.
many students want to do extracurriculars, they just don't find the time or not able to manage the workload. So if you can speak about that too.
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything, right? With extracurriculars, or it's just you fit it in. You treat it as though it's a course or something like that. Now, to be honest, it was most of my final year or part of my final year that I was running the pod, and then COVID happened. So it definitely wasn't like I wasn't running it for years through my undergrad, right? So I can't speak to it that deeply, but I know that many students have extracurriculars outside of their course schedule. So you would just sort of prioritize it in the same way you would do with that stuff.
Yeah, and a funny story, like I post on my Instagram stories and all of those. Today I received a memory notification about a story that I had posted 3 years ago, which was like Western locking down for a few days to just figure out what the situation was with
Oh yeah.
COVID.
Yeah.
I can't believe it's been 3 years after that time.
Yeah. I remember where I was when the NBA, I don't know why it was so like in my face. Like when the NBA shut down, I was like, man, this is serious. I was at my girlfriend's, and I was just on my phone I was just like, what is happening? And before you knew it, everybody's back home and just inside. It was insane.
Yeah. Wow. Well, time flies. Why? Why didn't you tell us more about the day-to-day kind of lifestyle that you have as a content creator or as an influencer, I guess, the buzzword influencer?
Yeah, no, all good, man. I think, well, it used to be I used to work a corporate job. I used to work for PepsiCo, and great company, nothing but fantastic things to say. And I balanced that with the content. And so usually my day-to-day life would just be work, and then it would just be getting one post up a day and just trying to like balance the emails and everything like that. Now these days, I was lucky enough to like build the thing to be able to go full time in October of 2021, which has been awesome. So I've been at this for about a year or so, a year and I don't know, a quarter or 4 or 5 months or something like that full time. And the day in the life basically is like wake up, I go to the gym. That's my anchor. I think that's the good thing about what I do is pretty flexible in terms of schedule. And then I'll come home and usually I'll ideate and figure out what video I'm trying to get up today or what videos are in the pipeline and all that kind of stuff, more the creative work. And then I will shoot and edit and try to make sure that everything's good for the day. Cause I typically post daily, haven't been recently, just been traveling, been busy with some other stuff, but getting back into that. So just trying to make sure that day's good, and then handling the admin emails, everything like that on throughout the day, and then afterward more so. A lot of it is just, a lot of writing, a lot of creative thinking and trying to come up with ideas. And then the other part is obviously like running the business, managing everything. And so it seems like, oh, you're just shooting videos all day. Like it definitely adds up. Like, I mean, today even like I was shooting videos for like 4 or 5 hours. That's all I did. Like it was just
Wow.
getting the video up, whatever. It can take some time. Sometimes you can just whip out your phone, do it quickly. Other times it's more intensive. And so it really depends, but your day fills up pretty quickly.
For when it comes to shooting videos, do you have a team or like people who do the video editing part film you, or is it all yourself?
I have a YouTube editor for my YouTube videos because it's just too long and too time consuming for me to do myself. But everything else is me. So I've had people edit my stuff in the past on short form. I just really enjoy it. I really like it, like having my hands in it. So or hands on it rather. So I think like I probably will at some point, but right now it's just me, and it's the way I like it as of right now. So
That's one of the things that stopped me from like pursuing this kind of idea of content creation on personal finance. Like I know I'm a big passionate person about personal finance and
mhm.
talking about investment opportunities to my friends, but like the whole idea of creating reels about it or videos is a lot of work. Like I feel like I have to like put in the work to actually be doing a good job, which seems to be the case with you.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, I think it can take time, and it's never going to be ideal to make videos. I mean, what sorts of videos like did you watch the Silicon Valley Bank stuff all go down this past weekend?
I did, yeah. It
Yeah.
wasn't fun to watch.
No, it wasn't fun to watch. It was spectacular in the sense that like not in a positive way, but it was just such a spectacle. And I couldn't take my eyes off it. I was reading everything. Like it was truly insane. And so, today I did a video on that, like examples like that's sometimes come up. So you just kind of pull from the news sometimes, you can sometimes pull from get inspired by other people's content, but it is a lot of work, and it's never going to be ideal, especially if you got other stuff on the go and balancing work and everything like that. You're going to have days where you just don't want to, and you just kind of have to push through. And so I would encourage you to start, man. I mean, there's a huge shortage of Canadian content, especially on finance as well. I can't, me and like a number of other people can't do everything. There's still a huge opportunity there.
Right. And I think the uniqueness of individuals also matters a lot. Like, even though if people are saying the same thing, some people consume content better from a specific individual than others. I know when it comes to about topics that are investing or like heavy finance stuff, like I have people in my mind that I go to their YouTube channels and look at their videos to see if they have said anything about those. So it's like the personal way of delivery, the way they speak, makes also a big difference on that.
Yeah.
So maybe I have my own fans out there and I just gotta go and find them, you know?
Yeah, exactly, man. You honestly remind me, there's a guy, he's Canadian tax enthusiast on TikTok. I don't know if you've ever seen any of his videos, but you remind me of him a lot, man. And he's got quite an audience as well. So there's a market out there for you, man.
Good to know. Well, I will have to give it more thought. That is a good positive start.
Yeah,
Getting this
yeah,
in my May. Okay. Um, I know you mentioned like you go to the gym. That's been an important part of your daily life. Is it something that came after the busyness with social media came, or has it been something that you've always been doing? Personal
yeah. I mean,
example. I noticed that in the past I was like fine with not going to the gym, but then recently I started doing some activities every other day to just like make sure I'm having some sort of exercise to give
mhm.
myself more energy as I've been spending more energy on different things. So it seems like I get tired easier. So I'm curious about your situation here.
I started working out in the morning when I was at Western actually, with my girlfriend, and we would wake up and we'd go to the gym at 6 a.m. every day, like at Western Rec. Like we had the 6 a.m. crew. Like I met a lot of friends. I have friends to this day that, we work out together at that early in the morning. And so that I don't work out that early in the morning anymore. Sometimes I wish I did, but um we did that for forever because we always had 8 a.m. class or 8:30 class. And so like we would just get up, get there, grind for an hour, get showered, have breakfast, and then we'd bounce to class. And like it was a good, healthy routine. And that kind of stuck with me. And so having her as an accountability partner, and we did it together. Now we both work out in the morning, but it's maybe not as early. But now I have to have that as my anchor, because then no matter what, if I don't do anything for the rest of the day, I feel as though it's okay. Like I did something productive. And there's been days where you're slammed, you're doing all kinds of work, and but you have that anchor. And then there's other days where maybe you weren't as productive, but like, hey, like you can rest on the fact that like you got your work and you got your lift in. And then lastly, I don't want to put something as important as that last, because I found that a lot of the time I'd just be too tired after work, cognitively or physically, to like bring myself to go to the gym. I don't have to worry about that if that's the first thing that I'm doing. Right. And so I find that it's been a better way to kind of like have that. And like I prioritize that, and it helps serve me in a lot of other ways, whether it's content, thinking creatively, etc. So it's a huge part of my life for sure.
Yeah, good. I guess I'll have to make it an early start to the day. Maybe perhaps consider doing it in the morning to see how different it would make my lifestyle.
Yeah,
That gave me
it
some
can take
thinking
us it
points.
can take a bit to get used to. You'll be a little bit tired, but once you do, I mean, it's just I don't know. I think it's been really beneficial for me.
Okay, good to hear that. I guess also if we can touch on the point of going full time, how was that like leaving a job and then going full time into your own, you know, something that was a side hustle once and now counting on it to be your main source of income? What kind of
Yeah, I mean,
indicators did you look for? How did you make that decision?
absolutely. It was it was a long decision. It was pretty thoughtful. I think I decided I thought about it. So back when I was recording videos in 2020 and everything like that, like I realized that like God bless everybody and everything that happened. Obviously 2020 was a very tough time for a lot of people, but when I look back at 2020, just with me and my family personally, I honestly, it was one of the better times in my life. I was just at home with my family, and I was just creating content. I was learning about how to grow on Instagram. I was learning all these things and learning about the possibility, and was growing my page. And it was just like I had my own thing, and all I was doing was just like taking care of that and just hanging out with my family. And that was some of the like the happier days of my life. And I thought to myself back then, like, man, if I could ever do this, and this is my job, like, I mean, this is it. Like, this is, I just never felt like that in that way. It just, I don't know. And so that was when the seed was planted. Like, man, maybe I could figure it out, but I wasn't pushing myself. Like, I was like, man, like, let me just, I didn't think it would happen as quickly as it did. And, but that, I started to ponder it when I was at PepsiCo and things were going and I was getting promoted and I was busy and just thinking, man, I just want to stay at home and make these videos. And then in 2021, I started making money. Um, and I was in a good financial position. So a few months of that, and I was realizing that like, okay, well, I've got a lot of, cash in the bank. And I think, if I was saving up for a down payment, but instead I could be, hey, this could be my opportunity fund. And then I started to make money that was matching some months, like matching what I was making at my corporate job. And so I figured, okay, well, what's the harm in just doing 1 year, seeing what happens in 1 year? If it doesn't work, I could always go back. There's always going to be jobs out there. As long as my heart's beating, I'm healthy, and got God on my side, like I'm going to go out and I'll find a job. It'll be okay, right? It'll be okay, but I'm going to give myself a year. And so I think 3 or 4 months out, I decided, and actually no, 3 months out, I decided that I was going to position everything, get everything ready to leave. And then bang, September 1st hit, gave my company a month's notice, and like that's all she wrote. So that's how we went about it, right? And it was, I don't regret it. It was one of the better decisions of my life for sure.
Wow. That was so inspiring. I guess like the whole idea of positioning yourself for success months out, that's one of those thoughtful decisions, and shows how it was more of an informed decision as opposed to a rush decision
Mm-hmm.
to take this step towards that. I know
Yeah.
I'm kind of inspired, but at the same time, I'm thinking that this is something that every person who wants to test something out would say, but
Mm-hmm.
then some don't know when to just quit, and like if it doesn't work, just like go back. Do you see yourself as someone who could be an employee again?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't like a lot of people, in the entrepreneurship space, they're like, I could never work for something. Like, I don't care, man. Like, listen, for whatever it is, I'm gonna be doing like, listen, if I were to go back to a job, I'd need autonomy. Like I would need some sort of like space. Like I would need room to work. And like that would be part of it, right? But like I don't have any ego around like being somebody's employee or anything like that. I think there's a lot of ego around that kind of stuff. And so I'm totally okay with that. And it's not like I've never felt like I have to make this work or else. Like it's like, man, like I love this. I'm gonna keep doing it. I'm gonna keep growing, and I've got big dreams and all this kind of stuff. But like if it doesn't work out, like it's okay. Like go work for somebody, because I don't like how people vilify 9 to 5s these days. I think there's nothing wrong with a fantastic job. There's a lot of great jobs out there that pay you well. Not everybody's vocation is their work, right? Some, maybe
Yeah.
it's traveling, maybe it's their hobbies or whatever. Like it's not how they make money all the time. And so I respect that. And I have no ego around that kind of stuff. So I think it's inspiring. But I'm not one of those guys that's like, that my boss said this to me, and that's when I decided I will never work for somebody. Like that's just not me, man. I don't care. Like I know that circumstances change, and they're different. And so if there was some person that was willing to pay me like, I don't know, $1 million, I'd stop what I'm doing right now and go work for it. I don't care. Like it's all good.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear. There was a point that you mentioned about opportunity funds. That's exactly how I'm thinking as well. Like you don't necessarily have to lock yourself into investments that are not liquid.
Mm-hmm.
The way I'm thinking about it is, well, I don't have enough money for a down payment right now. Might as well start saving up. But how would I want to save it? There are a few options. Just put them in a high yield savings accounts, which right now isn't really the worst option. It's the yields are pretty high. Um, or alternatively, invest it in the stock market. Now, like with the stock market, there is a lot of volatility and fluctuations. But the way I was thinking about it when I first started, which again was like COVID's May 2020 is when I started my very initial investment, was like, let me test it out with $100. I can't even remember if it was $100 or $200. Just like, let me test it out. If I lose it, I'm fine. Like, if it even goes to zero, I'm fine with that, because I kind of emotionally detached myself from that value.
Mm-hmm.
And then while COVID, that time was a good time for the stock market. May,
Yeah.
everything after May went up. I
Yeah.
mean, I would have been luckier if I invested in March 21st or whatever that was.
Mm.
But it kept going up, and like I kept putting more and more money towards that. Right now, I'm not doing super great, I gotta say. But like the whole point is that getting into investing and thinking of it as that opportunity fund, as you said, kind of changed my mindset towards, yeah, like let me do something with it in the meantime, and then when the right opportunity comes up, I will just like withdraw the funds.
Yeah.
Is that
And
the best thing? I'm not sure. Like, have some of your funds in savings account as well, not all of it invested, but at least this is something I'm experimenting with right now.
yeah, absolutely. I think so again, none of this is advice. None of this is, I'm not a financial, licensed anything, do your own research. I always like have to say that. But um, with it, when it comes to investing, I typically think that like the market and, hard assets like real estate and other things like that, that's long-term wealth. That's its own bucket, right? That is for you, your kids, your grandkids, your like your long-term money that you're not going to touch for decades, right? And so I typically don't invest money um, unless I have that in mind in something like a high growth, asset class like stocks or ETFs, right? For me, the opportunity fund is like the liquidity that you're talking about. Sure, there's an opportunity cost of the returns you might be getting in the market. You haven't been getting any returns in the market recently, but if they were, let's say the market was roaring, like there's the opportunity cost of that. It's the delta between the rate of return you're getting on your savings and the rate of return to the market. But that's the price you pay for the guarantee, the safety, and that availability to that money is priceless because it is quite literally an opportunity fund. It's you want that cash there for when you need it, whether it's for your down payment or for, if it's an emergency fund or for whatever. But for me, it was like, let me convert this into a cash cushion so that I'm liquid no matter what. And I have, 12 or however, I don't know how much, months of expenses worth, but I had a good amount of cash there so that like, if I didn't make a dollar, like I left the role with the mindset that like I wasn't gonna make a dollar and like would I be fine in a year? And it was like, yeah, you're gonna be fine. And they're like, yeah, let's run it, man, because there's just it's just upside here. I could just work and work and work. Now, luckily, things were good. Things continued to improve and things were great. But and God bless, right? But I think I had that in mind. Like, what's the worst case scenario here? Let me plan for that. Let me position myself for that. And I think if you can have that in mind with the long-term stuff here and then the opportunity stuff here, you're going to be in a really, really strong position because then you're going to be building wealth more exponentially, more immediately. And then you're going to be funneling some of that to the long term. And then it's a good sort of flow of money and wealth building because you can just dump all your money into the market and you're going to be fine. You can do the fire thing and retire early and be 35 and like have a few $1 million in the market, whatever. Like that's great. If you want to do that, go ahead. I typically like to encourage people to be like, hey, like let's invest in ourselves too. Like let's invest in the market, let's invest in ourselves, our skill set, whether we want to level up in our career, job hop, could find some jobs and make a few $100K a year and find those awesome roles, or whether you want to start a business and get that going and sell it someday for a big check or whatever you want to do. Like let's make sure that we're like saving some money and some opportunity for that, and then also having something for down the line as well. So that's developed over time. I and certainly doing what I do now is helped me realize that. But I think that's a pretty strong formula for anybody who's looking to just kind of get ahead and take care of themselves down the line.
Yeah, that was awesome. Especially the point about flow of funds. I think that's a really important one. Like making sure, well, prioritizing which one or which bucket to kind of fill first and then get to others. One of the things I have been hearing like maybe 100 times now is about the emergency fund. So that's one of the things I've personally been kind of focused on. Okay, like let me contribute to this emergency fund first. If you truly want to build your emergency fund first, you can't invest because that takes some time to kind of save up 3 to 6 months, or maybe in your case like 12 months worth of expenses. But like I was experimenting with all of these things together to see which one is better. Again, like this is not advice, but you can totally do different things and find what works for you. I personally love the idea of emergency funds. It kind of gives you again the cash cushion to and peace of mind to know that if you don't earn income for whatever reason, then that's okay. Hopefully
Yeah.
gives you enough time to figure it out if something goes wrong.
Yeah. And some people dive in, man, and they have no plan and like that's fine. I'm just not like that. Like I can't just like drop everything, have no plan. And like, I need something. I need a plan, bro. And some of the most successful people, I listen to a lot of like startup stories and some of the bigger companies that have ever been made and all these founders that come on and talk. And obviously there's a lot of survivorship bias where just like hearing the winners, you never hear about the people that didn't make it. But you hear about some of the stuff that they did to get where they were. And it, like, to me, I just think that like there's nothing, like, you leverage the job, man, leverage the 9 to 5, and it can take you different places. You can leverage that 9 to 5 to get another 9 to 5 that's better, or you could leverage it to, eventually make a path to, creating something for yourself. I think use it as a tool, treat it as like I always treated it like my fuel. I always thought of my job as fuel. Like, it was just fueling everything that I wanted to do. And that's why it's important. Right. But I, yeah, I think people just need to divorce the notion of like the rat race and this and that, and like the fact that this is just paying you money and it's like a stepping stone to the next thing for you, because that's in most cases what it's going to be.
Right. Absolutely. Trying to add anything, but I can't because it was so perfect.
Thank you.
And
Thank
I
you.
guess you're very welcome. And I guess this is the perfect segue to our hot take section for this week, which is, should you negotiate your first salary out of school or not? Nate,
Yeah,
I'll let you
I
start with
definitely
that
think
one.
so. I definitely think so. And not to cut you off or anything, but I know we kind of chatted about this earlier, but I think that there's a lot of fear with it, especially with somebody coming out of school, it's their first job, da 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 da. I think that you'd be surprised at, it might not happen. You might negotiate, it might not go anywhere. That's fine. But they're not gonna, like, it's very unlikely they're gonna pull the offer. Like, I rarely see that. And if they're gonna pull the offer, then you don't want to work there, because asking for a raise in 6 months or 12 months is gonna be a total pain in the butt. You'd rather not work there, go find some other role. If they're not even willing to like hear you out, and they, not only that, but they pull the offer, so you've got nothing to lose here. And by asking the question, if, like, I think I shared a video on it. Like, if you started out your first job and got $5,000 more, and there's a scenario where you ask, you get 5K more, and where you ask and you don't get any more, right? And then you don't, and then if A and B over time, let's say they both get the same percentage raise over, like, I don't know, let's say it's 20 or 30 years. I think it's over like millions of dollars extra earned just from that one ask, just from that one thing, because the percentages is based off your salary, of your raise, right? So if you're starting at 65,000, 5% of 65,000 is going to be bigger than 5% of 60,000. And that's going to hold true over time, and it's just going to compound. And so you're earning how much you earn over time due to your negotiate, just that one time when you first start, sets up you like unbelievably. Now, if it doesn't work out, the company still says, hey, we want you, like, that's fine. You can still make a ton of money. It's fine. But you're going to have to keep negotiating offers, negotiating for your raise, advocating for yourself. You need to be constantly pushing the envelope for yourself. Because nobody's going to do it for you. And the model of just like waiting for people to give you what you deserve, just like it, I just don't, you have to go out and get it. Like, I've always believed that. And so there's no harm in asking. I know it's so scary. I know I was scared. I negotiated my first offer and they weren't able to move on salary, but they were able to like move on location. And I wouldn't have known that unless I got the no from the salary aspect and said, well, I started negotiating with this and that, and they ended up moving me down a lot closer to home. And so I saved a ton of money like that. And so technically, it helped me so much. I wouldn't have known that if I didn't ask. If I just said yes, let me take this, whatever, I would have been, somewhere else in the province, way far from home, where it wasn't ideal for me. And so I think like that was a big key. That was a huge key. And I think I advocate for everybody to go ahead and ask, because again, if you don't get anything, that's fine, but you're kind of like scoping out the company to see if like how they are with that kind of stuff. And then also there might be other terms that are negotiable. So it's not always comp, maybe it's location, or some sort of benefits or whatever, right? And so
Vacation.
just gotta ask the question.
Yeah, no, love it. That's perfect. And To me, that is exactly what you should do. The thing I would add is positioning yourself in a way to be able to do that. Now, obviously, you want to negotiate in a respectful manner, not like go and demand a raise for whatever reason. Like you still have to be mindful that companies are working within certain budgets and they can't go over some limits. But I think just the curiosity of asking that in a respectful way to see if there's any room or budget, that would be a good thing. The other thing that I was talking about positioning yourself for success is by having multiple job offers. I
Yeah.
have seen so many people that were able to just get higher salary raises because they had multiple job offers and were able to get into their like dream companies because of that. So that's also another thing. Like if you're in the process of applying for jobs, know that multiple job offers does give you leverage in these cases.
Yeah, absolutely. But like, absolutely. I'd also encourage people, if you've got one offer, negotiate it. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
care. I don't like,
Regardless, do it.
just
Exactly.
do it. Like, I don't
Just do it.
care. I don't care. Like, you just don't give me this. I'm scared of this, that. Like, I get it. I understand. It's still nervous to this day when I negotiate. I get nervous. Like, I'm never not going to be nervous. I'm not some like cold-blooded, whatever. Everybody's always going to have a little bit of excitement when they're negotiating, when they're asking for something, because you just will. But over time, you get used to it. And when you see the fruits of your labor, when you ask and advocate for yourself, I mean, it speaks for itself. It's worth the ask.
And you know the difference that you mentioned about if someone asks just once versus the one who never asks, how much the difference was, like million or
I think
whatever?
it was like over $1 million in like earning power. I mean, I can't remember
Yeah,
the exact thing, but I mean, I know it's substantial. Like it is substantial. And then and if you continue to negotiate, it's well into the millions that you'll out earn the other person.
that's exactly what I was gonna say. If you do it once, you're gonna do it every other time after
Yeah.
that. It's not gonna stop there. If you
Hmm.
do it once, you're gonna continue doing that.
Hmm.
Ideally, if you receive good results, but like nevertheless, you have to continue negotiating. That's the takeaway here.
100%.
One question for you. So, talking about positioning yourself with income streams, how are you doing that in your personal life, or I guess with your business? Are you like doing partnerships, collaborations? How is that like?
Yeah, so how I make money right now is advertising, and so that's creator partnerships, that's affiliate links, that's YouTube AdSense, that's pretty much different streams, but they're all sort of from advertising. And so over the next little while, I'm going to diversify my income streams a little bit more, and maybe launch a business or program off of my content in some way, shape, or form. That's kind of in development, very early stages. I mean, very early stages. Um, but I've been focusing a lot on just getting better at making videos. Like that's just, I think a lot of people get distracted with trying to diversify income streams with what I do and try to multiple this, multiple, and it's like they lose, you got to keep the main thing the main thing. I think Kobe used to say that. God bless his soul. You got to keep the main thing the main thing. And for me, that's content. That's showing up on video. That's like doing my thing. And I feel as though I'm still on the trajectory to like build more for that. And so that's what I'm really focused on. And then the whole business, multiple income streams, everything like that will come down the line. Now, sure, there's risk to that, right? I'm less diversified. I'm like very focused. Advertising dries up, the economy kind of goes down, whatever. Like I'm subject to more risk there. I'm willing to take that. I'm willing to take that risk. That's just me, but that's the framework that a lot of folks should like think about. It's like you're gonna have to like focus really heavy on something eventually, whether it's your finances or whatever. Like focusing really intensely and building something meaningful instead of having yourself spread way too thin. Applies in life. It also applies to your finances, because I always hear people talking about I've got 8 streams of income, but like all of them aren't that meaningful. What if you had like 2 really, really good streams of income that made all way more? Like the number of them is, sure, it's diversified, but it's also watered down with some respect, unless you've gone, about it methodically and you've built one up to be really, really strong. And then you built up the next one, and then you built up the next one. But if you just have a bunch of random ones,
Yeah.
it's just not as meaningful. And so I think at a certain point you need to like focus and try to build a really, really meaningful one, and then another one and another one, as opposed to trying to build a bunch of bridges halfway. You're not going to get across. You can build one really strong bridge, then another bridge, and another bridge. And then you got three really strong bridges versus like 8 in construction, right?
Yeah. And as you were talking, I remember this example where on social media, I've seen it multiple times where they say, oh, the average millionaire has 6 streams of income. Now,
I think it's
thinking
so
about
misleading.
it,
I think it's so misleading. So
but
misleading.
like, no, like, well, like thinking about it from the lens of what you were saying, it makes sense because then you would think, okay, they built this stream, then kind of moved the cash flow from one thing to the other and made sure
Yes.
that was built up and then moved it to the third thing. An average person like myself who hears that is like, okay, well, how many streams of income do I have? Like one or two, whatever. How can I get more of them? And like the focus is just going to go towards creating more breadth, like so many more, as opposed to
Yes.
creating the depth. Now, this is something I learned in this episode. So that was really cool. Thank you for sharing.
Yes, breadth and depth. It's very much, you want very deep, strong streams, right? It's you're absolutely right, because most people interpret it as a breadth thing. Oh, they became a millionaire because they have a bunch of sources of income. No, 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 no. They're they have a bunch of sources of income because they are a millionaire, because they focused on one thing and made it really, really strong. That is primarily what it is.
How do you get your own information these days? Like what's your primary source for learning?
I mean, I obviously learn a lot on the job in terms of just like running a business and doing all that kind of stuff. I've read a ton of books. I've definitely got to get back and reading my books, but I've read a lot of books and a lot of content online, just sort of self-taught. And I keep up a lot with the news, like the Wall Street Journal and a lot of that stuff to stay up to date. And I mean, that's how I keep up with all the SVB stuff and everything like that. And so I think I'm always constantly learning, constantly trying to get better at what I do. But yeah, I think there's a lot of great information sources that are out there. I mean, a lot of content creators, a lot of video makers that do stuff, but I do a lot of the publications, a lot of podcasts. I listen to a ton of podcasts that teaches me a ton as well. And so that's how I get my information. That's how I learn. And again, just kind of doing the thing you learn along the way as well.
Got it. And you remember like earlier this episode you mentioned about the topic of not being scared to going back to the employee life. I think this will serve you really well in your life. You're someone who this makes you a person who is not afraid of taking risks because even if it fails, then you're okay with going back to job. You know how much of stress and unnecessarily emotional load this would remove from your back by just not being scared to go back to a job? I think
Yeah.
a lot. I think that's a lot.
Yeah, I think that's like the biggest thing, that one of the bigger things that trips up people when they start a business or they want to go full time. They think it has to work. It does not have to work. It can fail. Like you can be like, you'll be okay. You'll land on your feet. You're gonna be all right. Like there are other ways you're gonna make money as long as you are able to go out, put yourself out there, and then you can figure out the next thing. And so I'm just so detached from like, of course, I want it more than anything to like have this work and it sustain, of course. At the end of the day, like there's only so much I can do. And because of that, I don't stress over it, because I know that, oh, okay, cool, it's not working. Okay, we're back. That doesn't mean that I don't care. It means that I accept the reality of the risks that are out there. And like I'm okay with that. And so that's why people say it's a huge risk. I'm like, what risk am I like? What? Like I'm 26. I got years, God willing, all this kind of jazz. I like what I'm like, I could always go back. It's all good. And so there's no crazy risks that I'm taking. I'm still doing my thing. I'm just, I live a humble life, not in some big mansion or anything like that, or fancy car or anything. I got a Honda Civic. So I'm just chilling, man. And I'll take this as far as it can go. And I've got a lot of confidence with it. But I think if people want to do something like this in terms of whether it's, content, or whether it's like some other business, whatever, you have to accept that like there's a reality where it doesn't work out. And like, what are you going to do if it doesn't work out? Okay, I would probably go here and there and then, okay, cool. Okay, let's run it. Let's do it. Let's give it a shot. Because then you're all in, but like you're not, you don't have really a plan B. Like you do have a plan B, but like you're all in and you don't have to worry about like all this other stuff. Because I think a lot of that weight that stress. Like if I was sitting here just constantly like, oh man, if I don't hit these numbers, I'm just not going to be as productive with what I do. And so I definitely hope that people take that away. Like it's not, maybe it's all about the framing of risk. And like, maybe it's not as big of a deal. Like, sure, the judgment of your parents, like, okay, I think you'll figure that out, man. Or, I think whatever it is that is stopping you from making that jump, I think there's a logical sort of like, hey, you could just come back to where it is. I think the real risk is like not achieving your potential. Like that's a risk that like I don't want to have to regret, like the regret minimization sort of framework of where when I look back, like what are the decisions I wish I made? And I look back at the decision I made, like that is the decision I would have made. And so I don't regret not leaving or not. And I think I left at the, most ideal time for me as well. And so I think if you think about it in that sense, the decisions get a little bit easier because then you're like, okay, well, if that doesn't work, then I'm okay. It's not the end of the world. So
Yeah. No, that was awesome. I also think in a similar way about regret minimization risk. Now, I'm not sure if this is an actual term, but I actually do think about, well, like 10 years from now, would I regret not doing this or like doing this job or like traveling to this place? And it is a useful kind of compass to think about, to lean on and guide your next adventure. Now,
yeah,
this is where it becomes difficult because you have to include discipline with it as well. Otherwise, it would just be a slave to your emotions and like do whatever you want to do, which
absolutely.
again couldn't be bad, but if it's not coupled with discipline, it could be resulting in a negative consequence.
Yeah, and I think it is a thing. I think I learned it from Jeff Bezos, like the regret minimization framework. Like that's how he built Amazon, and he's talked about that. And I think it's a great way to think about the bigger rocks, the bigger things in your life, how you want to go about it, and that is what at the end of the day, when you look back, you think, man, I you don't want to be like, I wish I could have been this, I could have been that. Like you just don't want that, man. Like just go out and give it a try and like I promise you that like that's a much better solution as opposed to just like it's all good, this is safe, I'm good here, like it won't work out or this or that. Like give it a shot, man. If you see that lane, take the lane, and everything, you're gonna land on your feet, you're gonna be okay in a lot of scenarios. I don't want to speak for everything, but a lot of scenarios it's not as maybe as hyped up as you might make it be. And I sure I might sound like I'm quite calm when I speak about this. Like I've had a lot of anxieties and worries about different things in general. Like it's like everybody's going to have anxieties and worries and overthinking and everything like that. Believe me, I think a lot in general and overthink things sometimes. You got to take the jump. Like if it's just a great way to think about it is the regret minimization aspect of it. So
And I guess as we are approaching our last question for this episode, what is one takeaway you want our listeners to take away from this conversation?
I think people are way more capable. I think a lot of people are way more capable than they may think. Like I think they've got a lot in them. And like I love what I do because I like to show people that they're capable of so much more. And these people that you see, these celebrities or business owners or startup people or whatever, like they're just like you and me. They're just like you and me. They really are. Like a lot of them, I used to put them on a pedestal. Oh man, this, that, whatever. These days I'm like, man, like I'm just a normal dude. Like I honest to God, like there's nothing that crazy different about me, whatever. And there's not the thing that crazy different about all these other people. Like you can get there. You can achieve a lot of that stuff. They're not that different than you. And when you realize that, like things kind of open up. And I think Steve Jobs said that, like, I can't remember the exact quote, but he said something along those lines when the world opens up when you realize that the people that built the world are no smarter than you. He said something along those lines. And it was really profound. And I tend to think that like, I'm no smarter than I don't put myself up there, but I also try not to like, idolize people and put them on a sort of thing. And so that helps me realize that like, hey, like there's a system to how people went about and got their success. Maybe it's not as crazy or they're not as like built different or like genetically different than I am, to where I couldn't achieve the things that are achieved. Yeah, there's going to be outliers that are just like doing crazy stuff, all the time, right? Like Sam Altman, guy with OpenAI, I think that guy's like an outlier. Let's say, but I think a lot of you can create a really, 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 really great, awesome life, and a lot of people are so capable of that. And I just with my content, I try to share that and get that across that like, hey, you can go out and do that. You can go out and get that better job. Don't take that. I talk a lot about career content. Don't take, ish from your boss. Like, hey, go out, boom. Like there's opportunity out there. And I want people to realize that they are capable of more. And so I hope if you listen to this, like I believe in you. It's basically what I'm saying. So
That was awesome. No, we definitely believe in all of our listeners. That was a good takeaway. One thing I just remembered to ask is, what would you say to a student who wants to start but has very little disposable income? I guess one of the things we established with this conversation was to like increase your income, whether it's through a paid job, negotiate for your first salary, those things. What else would you add?
yeah, I would say, yeah, definitely have an income. So like work that, try to make it as fruitful as you can. When you're low on money, you gotta re-up on the hustle. Like there's a lot of money to be made if you've got a lot of hustle. Like you can have $0, but if you can hustle and you can go out and make it happen, like there's nothing like that is how you're going to go out and do it. I mean, whether it's a side hustle or whether it's an endeavor, like hustling, putting yourself out there, networking, whatever, getting in the mix and just putting in effort continuously over time, not just like one night, not just like 1 week, like over time, over a long span of time, you're going to see results and you're going to find the capital that you need to do whatever it is. It's just going to take time. So you have to be patient and just continuously put that in. If you've got the hustle and you're abundant with that and you're hungry, if you just do that over time, like you're going to win, you will. Like it's just, you're eventually going to come across something where it's going to be of fortune, and you can make something happen with that. Whether you actually win is whether you continue on down that path, right? And so I think generally, like I really encourage people to just, you don't have much money, okay, well then you gotta up the hustle. Then that's like the sort of the equation in my head.
And like doing what you said exactly opens up your eyes to opportunities. It's kind of trains you to see the great thing out of every opportunity or what could happen. And I think there's nothing comparable to that. Not everyone can have that sort of attention to detail when it comes to opportunities if they have trained themselves early on, right, especially as students.
Absolutely. So like sometimes I wish I was a student because like, man, like I just think, oh man, sometimes I don't like, I think it's like what? It's like March. You guys are doing like your midterms right now. So I don't miss that. But I do miss the flexibility and of I have flexibility, but like the flexibility of like school and everything like that. And I think it'd be pretty cool to be building what I'm building while I was in school. I think that'd be really interesting. So I think there's a huge opportunity for kids, whether it's content, and I'm a kid, so I don't mean it like that. I'm 26, but for students to build something while they're in school. And there's been a lot of great stuff that's been done in school, whether it's businesses or the next great thing. And so I definitely encourage people to get started. Cause like, if there is one thing, I certainly wish I started earlier. I certainly wish I went and got curious and started building, New Money Nate or whatever a lot earlier. So.
Okay, perfect. One final question before we wrap up. How can our audience follow you or find you? Where can they find you?
Yeah, I'm New Money Nate on TikTok. I'm actually Nate New Money on Instagram. The New Money Nate was taken. And I'm New Money Nate on YouTube. Pretty much New Money Nate everywhere. So you guys can look me up. Shoot me a DM. I try to get back to everybody. And I would love to, if you're listening from Western, I would love if you guys shoot me a DM, say, hey, listen to the podcast. Just want to share my thoughts. So happy to chat about anything with anyone. So thank you guys so much for having me. It's honestly been an honor.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nate, for being an amazing guest for this episode. And thank you to our listeners for following along with our alumni journeys. Feel free to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook at Humans of Western. We're everywhere. You can find us everywhere. And have a good rest of your day.